If there was anyone that was going to make an amp this wild, it was no doubt going to be Jack White. Let's check out the new Fender Jack White Pano Verb amp. The mad lad Jack White is back at it again, creating some of the most sort of insane combinations of things when it comes to guitar effects and amplifiers, and actually even guitars in itself. This is the brand new Fender Pano Verb amplifier, which was made in conjunction with Jack White and Third Man Hardware. And there's a couple of really interesting things that go into this amp that I want to talk about today. But first and foremost, let's address the massive elephant in the room, which is this absolutely massive amplifier, which probably should say address the massive amplifier in the room. But this is a colossal sized amp here. We're looking at like a kind of Fender Super Reverb, like twin reverb sort of size here. Looking at the enclosure, I think it is that kind of Super Reverb, like massive size. But there's a couple of really cool things, as I alluded to, that have went into this amp, and I'm going to just kind of explain them, all the unique features, and then I'll give you a couple of sounds from it as well. So if there is a section that you particularly want to see, the video will be split up into chapters that you can check just below, along with a link to our website for a couple of the finer details in it, because I'm not going to go too spec heavy with this amplifier. Just want to get some really cool tones out of it. So let's just jump right in. So when it comes down to what the kind of story of the Pano Verb is, essentially what it is it incorporates elements from 3 of Jack White's favourite vintage Fender amps. We have a 1964 Vibra-Verb, a 1968 Vibrasonic, and a 1993 Vibro King, sorry. All kind of been hodgepodge together and Frankensteined into this sort of amalgamation of all his favourite amps. The coolest feature, certainly from taking it out of his absolutely massive box, is that this amp has actually got 2 speakers in it, and 2 of them they're each different sizes within themselves. We have a 15-inch Jensen that is mic'd up with an SM27 today, and we have a 10-inch Jensen as well, which is mic'd up just with the 57. Gives it like a really quite unique sort of like sound. It's, you know, it still sounds like you're playing a Fender here, but you're getting those sort of like, you know, if you've ever played like a Princeton, you'll know that kind of like really quite, you know, like nice high end that you're getting from that. But it will kind of lack a little bit of that low end because it's a smaller speaker. But then if you've ever played a twin at any sort of level, you know, not kind of ear bleeding level certainly, but anything to actually get the speaker moving, you'll know what that kind of low end is like. So this is just the amp, no reverb, no tremolo, no nothing. This is it, just completely dry. I'm just going into the one input there as well, because that's another feature that this amp has that is a little bit different to other Fender amps, well, certainly of this kind of style, that it doesn't have like a bright channel or anything. So we're just going directly into the input there. Got everything pretty neutral on the EQ, and there's no reverb or trem on this. I don't know about you, but playing at an amp with like totally dry, especially like a clean amp or something, it always makes me feel like really quite bare and just very, like I'm very conscious of everything I'm playing as well. So that's a perfect opportunity for us to check out the reverb that is built into here as well. I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit as well, just like this amp. Quintessentially, it is just a kind of clean Fender style, but there's, you know, a few features in it that make it very, very unique, including the reverb here. So we jump over to this other panel. This is what we're going to be obviously kind of tweaking our EQ with. Now, just a very quick sort of highlight. This is a good chance to obviously talk about the cool yellow, black and white Third Man branding that is on this amp. Because I mean, look at that yellow Fender logo there. Just that thing is just so cool. So anyway, we're talking about the reverb. It's a proper analog spring reverb that is in the bottom of this amp here. The mix, that's going to control basically like how much you're going to get of the reverb. The dwell is obviously how long it hangs about, and you've actually got an EQ for it as well, which is really cool to see, because personally I quite like a kind of slightly darker one, a darker reverb, so I'm able to obviously like cut the highs just a little bit, boost the lows. Now this switch here, I'll get onto that in just a second. We'll leave it on full. So this is with the dwell just kind of over halfway, the mix at about 4. I'll just kind of tweak through them and let you hear what it's doing. So plenty of room in that reverb there to get really drenched with it, and there's something about that proper just, you know, analog spring reverb. It's just, there's nothing quite like it, especially coming from a Fender amplifier. Now, to kind of focus on this switch here, you'll notice it has that kind of similar style to like a twin or something, but what this one here is particularly doing is you've got an option between full and split. Now, the full mode that you were just hearing there, that is the reverb coming out of both speakers. So it's coming out of the 10-inch just at the top there, and it's coming out of the 15-inch at the bottom. Whereas if we hit the split, what that is now doing is it's just exclusively coming out of the 10-inch speaker just at the top. So there was all the settings just left as they were. Obviously, we were getting quite extreme examples there when I was turning the mix and the dwell up all the way again, but hopefully that gave you just the sort of the sound that that is giving me in the room right now. Because it's giving me kind of, there's a certain sort of like clarity that comes with, it's almost like kind of putting it in like, you know, like an effects loop or something like that, where it's like, it's not being, you can still hear a bit of that dry signal kind of coming through, and it's not particularly getting in the way. It's quite hard to sort of explain, to be fair, because it just allows you to still hear such a clarity with like your note. It's, you know, it's like the pre-delay on like a delay pedal, not a delay, pre-delay on a reverb pedal, that it's giving, that it's letting your note kind of be really accented, and then there's a bloom behind it. Hopefully that gives you an example of what it was, because it was like, it's thrown me a little bit just there when I was trying to explain it, but very, very cool. I probably wouldn't have it off of that full setting, just because, especially when you get it kind of cooking a little bit more. Like, that's just absolutely lush. Now, let's move over to the tremolo here. Also, kind of classic sort of harmonic trem, which you would expect from something like this. I kicked on the reverb there about halfway through just so you can hear how it reacts, but not too much to kind of go into that. You've got the intensity and the speed to control, and that's really about it. It's got like a proper kind of lush trem sound to it, which is really, really cool. That kind of sort of spongy sort of sound, which I quite like with a trem. Now, there is an additional switch on that as well, mono and stereo. Essentially what that's going to do, and in the stereo mode there, it was kind of like subtly jumping between both speakers. It's not like super, super panny, because if I turn it up all the way, you're not hearing like one speaker stop and the other one continue. Like, it's not completely cutting out your signal. But if we were to go just back to the mono setting, that just means that both speakers are going to be working just exactly the same time and both kind of dipping out of their volumes at the same time as well. Sounds absolutely awesome. Super into that trem there. Now let's just go back to our standard sort of EQ section here, because there's one thing on here that is like maybe not sort of traditionally on a kind of classic Fender amp like this, and that is actually a drive section, which what this is doing is this is essentially just controlling a 26 dB boost in the amplifier. So if you do just need that little bit of a kick, then you can. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'll just show you how it works. And actually, it's very similar to a couple of the other knobs on this amplifier. It's just another little cool feature that, see when you're at 0 with some of them, there's a nice satisfying click when you actually kind of get going into it. Oh, oh, nice click. But if we're to turn that drive up to about, I'm going to put it to about 7 here, because it's 26 dBs of a clean boost, so there's not really much kind of going with it, but you can kind of get it driving like a little bit. And I'm not going to go any louder than that because actually, before we started filming this, I did turn it up all the way. I put drive on 10, volume on 10, just to see what happens. Now, I'm not going to do this here because it did overload the mics. So if we were to do it here, it would just sound just absolutely wild, and I think I would destroy Aaron, our videographer's ears while doing that as well. But let's cut to what happened then, and bear in mind this is just a shotgun mic on this as well, so it's not any sort of pro level recording. Right, here we go. Holy
What's that one?
10.
Right. Okay.
Right, I'm gonna do it.
He's gonna do it.
So there you go. If you want to be an absolute madman as well, then you can turn up all the dials to 10. But maybe wear your earplugs like we should have done when we were trying it out. Now, for the kind of final section of this video, is that really covers like most of the features. Like it's obviously got like a kind of traditional Fender EQ on there. You can kind of get it cooking a little bit when you bump the volume up as well, and it's obviously ungodly big. But much like any other kind of classic Fender, it takes pedals and like pedal sounds really, really well. You heard at the start, I kind of kicked on a bit of a fuzz for that kind of white stripesy sort of thing. But I'm going to just cycle through a couple of sounds. I'm going through a Neural DSP Quad Cortex for all the pedal tones. I'm going to kick on a kind of light overdrive, and then I've also got that fuzz that I'm going to kick back in as well. So let's just see how this handles kind of flicking between some of the pickups here on this Mutesa Sato Sur as well. Let's start just with our kind of mid-level overdrive and see how this thing handles. So in terms of what the Pano Verb has to offer, that's about as much as I wanted to cover with it. I'm really glad that I had an opportunity to turn it up all the way before we started filming. But where I actually see a lot of this amp coming in handy, now obviously it's a very specific like sort of amp for somebody. Somebody needs like a really, really loud, really big, clean amplifier. Then this is just going to add on to that list of somebody's got like, oh cool, right, a twin, oh right, cool, like a super reverb or something like that. But where I can actually see this amp sort of standing out from those is the combination of the different speakers. So say for example, you know, you're doing like a recording or something like that, or you're maybe like playing a gig, and you need that like slightly higher end from a smaller speaker. You know, you can then you can just mic up the 10-inch if you want to, and obviously just have the rest as like stage volume, or, you know, blast in the front row with the additional one, and vice versa as well. If you just need that 15-inch for that extra sort of low end, then you can then obviously stick in obviously just a mic in front of that, and then that's you good to go as well. Perfect for recording, probably quite difficult to get to a gig, but hey, just, you know, use this as your workout for the weekend. I'm pretty sure you'll be all right. But let me know what you think about the new Fender Jack White Pano Verb in the comments down below. And if you have enjoyed the video at all, give us a like and a subscribe. It really does help the page grow. And we're really close to 60k subscribers as well. So thank you very much for that. But till next time, I've been Keiran, and this has just been a look at the Fender Jack White Pano Verb amplifier. Have a great day.